Hello everyone, today I'm painting Tau Stealthsuits in the Vior'la Sept. After putting the models together, I primed them in black and gave it a zenithal highlight from above. Now I'm picking out the different black parts, having to reach in a few places. I guess you could put them together in pieces, but I chose not to. Generally, I'm just looking at the box art and almost like a paint by numbers, just filling in what it is that they have there. For this video, I'm painting both types of stealth suits. I've got the burst cannon and the fusion blasters. After painting the black things black, I'm now moving on to the white armor. In this case, it's going to be Ulthuan gray. Applying it with kind of a flat brush and doing multiple layers. You can see I've got kind of messy with the black in a few places, so just kind of painting over that. This is going to be very thin and at least 2 thin coats. Moving on to other details on the base coat. There's some gray parts. This is uniform gray from Army Painter. There's just a couple of details on a few bits of the armor on the arm and the torso. Again, this is supposed to be thin, and it'll take at least 2 coats. Moving into the crevasses there. Next, I used Citadel's Mephiston Red for some of the red bits. I had other stealth suits I kind of painted in a few different places here, just the antenna and this guy's face. The next step is the oil wash, but before I do that, I'm going to put in a gloss coat over the whole model. This helps keep things separated, and especially with the white paint that I'm using, doesn't muddy up everything. So of course I'm using my Bob Ross paint and some odorless thinner. Putting that together, keep it pretty thin, and going to put it over the whole thing. As much as I can, I'm trying to avoid just blanketing everything, but I do want to make sure that I'm touching all of the details. I'm looking for all the little divots, the corners, any place where I want to bring out a detail or which otherwise just might be kind of a dirty part of the model. Much in the same way that you should let the oil paint sort of dry out a little bit before we put in the oil paint. I'm going to do the same thing. I'm probably going to wait 45 minutes or so after putting on the oil wash. I'm going to be using straight thinner on a Q-tip here. It's a little bit aggressive and sometimes can leave some fuzz, so there's probably other makeup brushes that you could also use. What I'm trying to do is going over it and trying not to get into the crevices to leave the oil wash into the details. After the oil wash is completely dried, we're going to move on to adding some detail back on top. As I was trying to avoid hitting the armor all over, and the gloss coat was able to keep it clean, I'm still going to come back and on the upraised portions add then the Ulthuan gray. After doing some cleanup, now we're going to do some edge highlights. I think this is ash gray from Army Painter. After this, we're going to use Evil Sun Scarlet on top of the Mephiston Red on both the helmet here and the antennas all the way around. After Evil Sun Scarlet, I'm going to use a little bit of Wild Ryder Red. I'm going to keep going and trying to push some of the highlights on the edge highlighting. I think we're just going to add some more white, more ash gray, just trying to push up the contrast where I can. Next, we're going to do some more highlights of things I missed before. In this case, it's going to be the gold. I never really have a good gold that I can find. This is probably just greedy gold. So after we get the base coat down, I'm using Agrax Earthshade to use as a wash over the top of it. Looking at the box art, these guys have glowing faces, so I'm just putting down a base coat of white. Go over that later. Your basing may vary, but here I'm using a mud. I'm going to go over that with highlights later, but if you put this down, you might want to clean up the edges a little bit more than I did here, because I had to really kind of rub off some of that later. I've got decals on now. I'm just, again, looking at the box art. There's not a lot that I can find, but on the guns here, and if we take a look, it'll be on the other side. Now I'm doing some chipping and weathering. I'm using Rhinox Hide and just using very small dots on corners, on edges, generally kind of on the outside, or and on the front, where if it was just my stealth suit was running through the forest, it would hit the branches and on those edges there. It's always best not to overdo it, because you can keep adding a little bit more, but it's hard to undo it. Going back to the faces, using the blue wash to try to give some sort of glowing effect. I'm not very good at this, so you probably have a better way of doing it. Same for the guns here. First I'll add white, then I'll use blue to try to get kind of a glowing effect for that. Working on the bases again, using the Acrex Earthshade to put kind of shadowing around the feet, and using a tan to highlight on top of that. Again, I'll use like a wraith bone, a bone type color on top of this as well in order to bring more highlights. The basing is obviously individual, and do yours how you want. Some regrets using this glue again. It's very effective, but it also has a lot of those stringy filaments when you pull it away, which can be a mess. But I'll put a few dabs of that here and there, use my fake rocks. Then I'll put a winter tuft from Army Painter, because it's always nice to have little bushes, and even better if they have a friend. The only thing left to do is to paint the rims. I also finished it off with a matte varnish from a spray can. So here's the completed team. It was a lot of fun to paint. Just took a long time. Thanks for watching.